Okay, so I've been using Invision's craft for 10 minutes and getting pretty frustrated already. Like, reordering has been a huge pain in the ass. There are no reshuffling animations, like when the list kind of splits apart to show you where things are going. Even just a simple little line. As I drag this, I want to see a little line to see where this is going to land. But it seems like what's happening is I just like drop it in between here and it just goes right back to where it was. If I drop it on top, it replaces its position with this, and it's just been super frustrating. So now what I have to do is just delete every new style because I want my styles to appear in a specific order, similar to here. So default, subdued, strong, placeholder, link, underline link, inline link. By the way, it's not recognizing these, which is also frustrating because these are a part of my style. The underline is, at least. And when I go to create a style for this, it says it's a duplicate because I already have default. I also think it's a really bad idea to not let you have duplicate styles, because sometimes I actually may want to have two styles that look the same but semantically are for different purposes, so I don't want to tie them together in case later on I want to actually have them deviate in different directions. So anyway, I'm going to go back to here, delete that. Okay, so now I've got my meta text. I'm going to go back, add that. I'm also not sure how this is programmed, but like the clicking targets feel really, really fragile. And what I mean by that is that when I go to click something, I often, I don't know, feels a little bit iframey. So link, now if I go to make that into a style, it says that this style already exists, and that's because the only difference between the default text, body default, and body link alt is that it's underlined, so you see everything else is the same. It's just that this has an underline and I need that, but I can't have that, so I'm just going to skip that and see how that goes. Just renaming these. Like, I wish there were some tooltips for these. Like, I don't really understand what this means. I think maybe it has something to do with repositioning or syncing or something, but like back and forth. I'm not going to try it now because I don't want to mess things up, but I can come back to this afterwards. See, this is what I'm talking about. This is our display type. This happens to be the display type we use on small screen, which happens to be the same as body, 16/24, but it has nothing to do with body. It just happens to be at that size at certain screen sizes. So the fact that I can't have a duplicate of that style essentially makes this whole thing completely useless, because I just can't have my full text library. So now I have to do some weird thing, like maybe I'll tweak this to be a slightly different tracking, but like this is also based on the UI font fixer for San Francisco, so I wanted it to be a negative 0.32, not negative 0.3, but whatever, I'll use that. And hopefully this will not catch it. Okay, so what to do? Maybe I'll just skip small screen. This is one of those things where I feel like, I'm sure the intention behind it was to prevent designers from creating duplicate styles, but there is a very good use case for having a text style have multiple text styles having the same exact attributes. So this is the clicking interactions also feel a little bit off. Like when I type this in and I can't hit enter, but if I go back to doing something here, okay, now it worked, but like before it popped back to its original one, or its original text. Like that just happened. Okay. It's also a little bit worrisome that I'm just going to create a fake style. So it's a little worrisome that I could just like click this and it would disappear. Like that's a pretty serious, you know, it's a pretty serious change in my opinion to just like let you erase an entire text style that many pages may be dependent on. I don't really know what would happen. Like if I if a bunch of people are using these display styles and I accidentally delete one, do all those lose styles? Or, what's the unique ID? Is the unique ID the style attributes or the name? I think it should be the name, not the style attributes. Okay, so those are some text. I mentioned this in the intercom, but I really wish that this list could span the entire height of the page. This kind of looks like Photoshop. I haven't used Photoshop for a long time, but I do remember the kind of like long tool palette that was condensed, and then you could press this, and this whole thing would be like your layers palette. That was pretty useful. I kind of wish I could have that here. This is just weird. Like, I'm just hiding my folders, or not my folders. I'm hiding my layer inspector and my layer list and inspector, and it just totally breaks everything. So now I have to quit Invision, and whoa, holy crap. Never seen that before. All these. Okay. Yeah, autosave is on. Weird. Okay, so we've looked at shared type, which is cool. So now I wonder if I open a new document and I put in some text and I style that to be meta subdued. See, the problem is I now have no idea what this is. I have no way of knowing if this is like, I have to literally go through the attributes here. What I like about sketch styles is that you can actually see very clearly what the style is here. So if I'm working with a developer, they can just click on it and they can see exactly what style I'm using. There's no question about that. And if only this would just highlight the style that I'm on, that would solve a lot of my problems. So what happens here? I just like update texturity. What? Okay, so that didn't actually do anything. What? What just happened? Okay, let's see what colors does. Okay, so this is essentially just fill color. That's not really useful to me, like at all. I need, like, colors aren't the thing that need to be shared. It's colors. fills along with borders, shadows, inner shadows, and other effects. It's the entire layer style. That's something that like it's not that hard to keep track of a brand color, but yeah. So if I change this to orange, what happens? Like, can I select this and update? Okay. Tap target on that is so small. Like, it's so much smaller than anything else I'm used to clicking on Invision or on Sketch. And at least with actual objects on the canvas, I can zoom in, so I have a larger tap target. But that is a tiny tap target or click target. I'm using a stylus, so it'll be way more precise than someone using a tablet. Okay, so colors don't actually involve layer styles, just fills. Because if I had another thing with like just an outline, and I save this as a new style, what? Okay, so if I so it literally took the border color of this and extracted it. Okay, so maybe colors isn't the right place to do it. I'm just going to add a custom category and call it layer styles. Okay, so let's go to my buttons. Take a regular button background, which I'm calling button default, and add a style. Let's see what happens. Ooh. Okay, so it's literally taking the layer. Oh, geez. What? Okay, like I guess maybe for assets this could be useful. So what happens if I reduce that? Why isn't this getting updated? Okay, let's go for something much more complex. Let's take this whole thing and add it as a component. Okay, so what I like about this is that at least it's preserving all of those different symbols. Now I'm going to try going to a different computer or a different file, and then I'm going to import library. Oh, I see. Okay. So I'm going to go layer styles. Okay. So I'm interesting. I'm going to drop that in there. Ah, okay. So there are some interesting uses for this. What's interesting is that I think literally position the symbols where they would have been in this file. Like, let's go to 100%. 100%. So we've got these ones plus this. So these ones plus that. And then, very interesting. Okay. All right, let's see what we can do with this. I'm starting to like this a little bit. Let's add some more components. So what happens if I go to here and let's say I take let's create a new category called like badges. Take this, add it, add, and I'm going to go to this other file and I'm going to, oh, so I see you have to, oh, no, seems like it just imported it. I'm going to go to my badges and I'm going to bring one of these right in here. And let's call this and I'm going to use that. I'm going to use dynamic but to make it larger. I wonder, I shouldn't do this, right? Yeah. So if I did that, it, I guess like one person could go and say, oh, hey, actually that's not the way we want to have this set up. We want this to actually say, like you can have an instance of this, but we want this to just say default. And we're going to update this one. Okay, that works. That kind of works. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool. Let's go close this again. Oh, very interesting. So you could, new updates, sync all. I'm just going to sync all. Okay. Now I wonder what would happen if I use an instance of this here. And if I use an instance of this here, create a new file, and use an instance of this here, and now here I've already changed the name of this to that, but I'm not going to update it. I'm not going to update it. But here, some other case, I'm going to say actually I want this to be 24% gray. So now I can update this. New change. Ah, god damn it. That sucks. I guess like layout isn't like layout and sizing can't be an override, right? It looks like text can't either, which the problem with this is if I've got like 10 people on my team using these badges and they're using the badges for all kinds of different stuff, and I say, hey, there's a new badge color, and all I've done, literally all I've done in, so let's say like, okay, so I'm designer A. Okay, let's just delete here. I'm designer A. I take this, I put it here. Take this and I put it there. I'm trying to establish our, style guide, UX system, guidelines, whatever. So this is the canonical version of this. And it's great we have these. I'm just going to replace this with this. And let's say that in the beginning it's 12. And so now designer B opens this. Oh wait, I have to update this. Okay, so now designer B uses one of these and puts it in here. But obviously I don't want it to just say default. I want it to say like hi or whatever. So now I have this. Cool. I'm just utilizing these components, right? Now designer A again says, you know, actually this is a little bit too light. We're going to make it 20. And I'm going to update that. And I'm going to just take this whole piece and update this element. Come on, hover targets. Okay, so I've updated that. Now designer A sees, or designer B sees, oh, there's an update. I definitely want to have the latest update, so I pull this down. And now, not only is my size is what it was before, but my text is back to being the same. And that's kind of a weird bug. And then a button seems to not be working for some reason. Until I like reselect everything and refresh it. So, you know, it's like, it's kind of useful. The main issue I see with this is that the components that I'm making as the patterns designer can be utilized by the product designers. But if I make a change to one aspect of a component and I refresh it, it's going to override everything, including the text value, including the size. So if there was a way to just update the thing that I changed and perhaps, you know, allow there to be a exception for text values, that might be useful. Let's take another example. Let's create a new one for banners. And I'm going to take this banner. I'm just going to take all the banners, actually. These are just kind of examples of how you might use banners. But they could act as a starting point for a lot of people. So designer A, pattern designer, creates these styles. And designer B, the product designer, sees these. It's like, okay, I need a banner. And just drop that in here. And I'm going to change this text to be, you know, and I'm going to have this go and update that. Now, I'm the product designer. I'm not really going to be concerned about pushing these changes back, because this is a specific change for me, for my needs. So I don't need to push this back up. But as a patterns designer, I might say, you know, this shade of blue, it's not exactly what we want. We want maybe like a slightly different shade of blue. So I want it to be like more teal. For info. So now I want to refresh the style. Come on, hover targets. There we go. And I'm scared to see what happens when I... Oh, God. Oh, God. Yeah. This just doesn't work. I'm literally trying to squeeze any use out of this. And unfortunately, you know, there are too many dependencies. I might as well be, you know, having a shared Dropbox folder with JPEGs or PNGs in them. Because what's the point in having a sketch file with actual, you know, nested layers and text files and layer styles or text styles and layer styles and all these kind of complex components? What's the point in having that if sharing them is superficial and only on the surface? So I think while the trailer that I watched this morning for Library was conveniently using the specific use cases where you could maybe get away with this kind of stuff, I don't really know how much value that adds versus something much simpler like Brand IA, where you just, you know, have a list of colors and so here's the thing. It's not that this is completely not useful to our workflow. It's just that we sort of have to accept that this is a one-way communication. That when you start working on a file, if halfway through your process you see that you know, a component was updated, you should probably not pull down the changes because it's probably going to break your file. However, if you're starting from scratch, then maybe it's not a problem. If you're starting from scratch and are not worried about staying up to date with the patterns throughout the course of your project, like if we change the layout of this, if we change the layout of the banner to have like the text be closer to the icon, or if we change the text size here from being like body to being like meta or something like that, then you probably want to just not update changes. But then it becomes really hard to decide what you want to update and what you don't want to update, because something like typography would be really useful to update. Let's try this with a couple more things. So here's one that I could see being useful. So I will create one called like popovers and add that as the patterns designer, and that, and I can, you know, I gotta give Invision credit. Things are updating. I think that's because it's built on like a web platform or something. Everything's very responds instantaneously. I don't have to like wait for something to refresh, which is definitely a huge plus. So that's awesome. Let's go to popovers, pull this guy in. It's also, for the same reason that it's awesome, it's a little bit slow and it has weird delays. But okay, so I pull this in. What I also like about this is that it pulls in like, oh, it doesn't pull in text styles? You serious? Anything? No styles at all? I thought it was doing that. Ah, man. So here I have like a background style, and I've got a body style here. I've got meta meta subdued there, meta subdued there, and it doesn't transfer any of that, but it does transfer symbols, because like I go to my what did I call it? Popovers layer styles. I think it was, yeah, incorrectly named, but I bring that over. Yeah, weird. I really wish that text styles and layer styles were brought in alongside symbols, because I guess there's a way to make have a workaround where if you have a pattern designer who's taking care of all this, I'm using layer styles here, and so we're syncing at a component level, not at a style level, which is maybe okay. But I mean, at the same time, yeah. Let's try a form field. So let's do one for inputs. Forms. So we'll do a subdued. Second file. Yeah, I mean, I wonder though, like if I had my core styles, text styles and layer styles. Let's just open a completely new document. Let's say I'm keeping these synced. Okay. So I have these here. And let's say I now bring in a form field. Interesting. So if the styles match, then I have these. Maybe there's a way to keep things synced, keep the styles synced with brand AI. Well, theoretically, if this worked, brand AI has been giving me some issues recently, but theoretically, if this worked, you could keep text styles and layer styles synced using brand AI, and then assets synced using the library feature, which doesn't transport, doesn't transfer text and layer styles. And what would essentially happen is, as a designer creating patterns, I would ensure that the file I'm working off of, this master file that I'm working off of, I would ensure that it's using the correct styles for everything. So when this goes out, I ensure that it's meta subdued and that is being synced with brand AI. And then when I, as a product designer, use that component and bring this in here, then Sketch is able to match one-to-one. Okay, so this is a meta negative, this is a body default. Fuck. Why is this happening? I don't understand. Might be because I was sharing text styles. Oh man. Well, I'm gonna figure this out. I know there's a solution to this somewhere. This is not it. I was pretty excited. I'm still kind of excited. I didn't really use Craft when it first came out because I didn't think that it was useful if it was just for one file at a time. So I haven't really seen how much progress Invision has made on Craft, but I hope that they make certain improvements. I think that the big things for me would be finding a meaningful way to allow the contributor set up what things can be excluded from the sort of canonical version, the library version of something. So in the case of this, if I could have a way of saying that the text value and the layer style, the text value and the text box could be just set to auto. So the text value and the background width only, not height, just width. If I could exclude those two things from the library asset, shared asset, then anyone else could, in another document, could grab that asset, throw it in, make changes to it, and whether manually or using something like dynamic button, resize it so that that just overrode the text value and the background size, so that now, as the patterns designer, if I change this to 12 again and update the badge, That's weird. Anyway, yeah, that's a major one. That's one thing, and then there are just like usability issues with this. Like, I wish this was longer, or I wish this panel could either manually or automatically be resized to take advantage of the full height. I wish that reordering was easier. I really like that they included custom categories. That's great. But this is not optimal yet, not quite yet. I like where it's going, but let's see what happens if now I have changes to pull. Did they just get disconnected or something? Weird. Now this is not updating. So I'm literally pulling something that looks different into here. So that's a bug, probably, I think. Yeah. Nope, but it's up to date here. So why isn't it up to date here? Okay, anyway, gotta go. This was fun. It's definitely something that's moving in the direction that I'd like to see design tools go. But to be frank, it's got a very, very long way to go until a relatively large team or even a small team could really use this to up-level their workflow. Thanks for listening. Sorry for all the ranting. As always, tons of respect for what Invision and Sketch and all these other folks are doing with design tools. What I view my role as is to just look at these and critique them so that hopefully they can be better and better. See you later.